What's going on, guys? Welcome back to the channel. For today's video, we're going to be checking out the Transformers Legacy United Commander Class Magmatron, the Emperor of Destruction and the big bad leader of the Predacons, at least when it comes to the Beast Wars Neo universe. A universe which I'm seriously surprised to see make its way into the mainline, because I honestly thought a character such as Magmatron would have been better fitted for a HasLab, much like we've seen from Deathsaurus and Starsaber, but when it comes to an update, I think it is safe to say that Hasbro have absolutely smashed it. This guy looks incredible, a near one-to-one match to the actual character model. As we check out the details, easily the money shot of this mode for myself would have to be that big bad upper torso. This guy looks like he would single-handedly annihilate you off the face of the planet, and despite the upper torso looking amazing, to be fair, the lower half isn't too bad either. Whilst it may be slightly simpler in design, he is packing some chunky purple legs which would give Megatron a run for his money, and even as we flip this sucker around to the back, despite not being as visually interesting as the front, the inbuilt hydraulics I think are looking awesome, and despite the backpack maybe being a little larger than how it appeared on the show, it has been fully decked out with a ton of mechanical detail, so definitely does blend in with the rest of the robot mode. Overall, this guy just looks simply nuts, and despite myself not being overly familiar with the universe this guy's based off, I am so glad that we are now seeing a full-blown mainline release of this character, because there is no denying that his design has to be by far one of the most interesting that we've so far seen from the Legacy lineup. Even as we check out this guy's accessories, these are ferocious. So to begin with, we have the iconic Magma Blade. Again, I'm also digging the inclusion of that inbuilt Predacon insignia. That is such an awesome touch. In order to fend off against mighty threats such as Big Convoy, this guy's also packing what is pretty much the guts of the Seasaurus as a full-blown shield. Now, when it comes to scale, this thing is massive, and in terms of the internal detail, I think he's looking sick. I mean, check out all of those mechanized panels. As we flip this baby round to the back though, it is pretty much the underside of the Seasaurus, so with the exception of a few hydraulic details, it's mainly kind of realistic, which I won't lie to you guys, definitely does come across as a little creepy. If any of those accessories fail him, then he can rip out these inbuilt Terra swords. But these have been pretty decently detailed, and again, despite being a part of the wing of the Skysaurus, these are still packing a punch when it comes to scale. And finally, what commander class would be complete without the return of the Transformers Siege blast effects? So, I do believe these are the same ones which we saw released with Omega Supreme way back in either 2018 or 2019, but these are really awesome. They can be broken apart into many individual segments, or you can even merge them with the Magma Blade to kind of transform that into a Magma Blaster, which, I won't lie to you guys, I can imagine Magmatron being an absolute tyrant with on the battlefield, annihilating both Autobots and Maximals. So, now let's check out the posability of the Emperor of Destruction. So, to begin with, unfortunately the main robot head is only on a mere swivel, so you won't be able to get any left or right range out of that, but in its defense, where the main head lacks, the serpent head from the Seasaurus most definitely makes up for that. When it comes here to the shoulders, these are ratcheted, so they will kick forwards, they will kick backwards, they can then go out to the side, roughly to 90. He's also packing a bicep joint, as well as a double jointed elbow, which I thought was really awesome. In addition to a wrist swivel, the fingers can open and close, although unfortunately, unlike the amazing Siege Jetfire, the port doesn't recess inside the palm, which for a commander class, I really wish was something they did. But when it comes here to the waist, this can rotate side to side with no issue. You can also make use out of the transformation joint to kind of get a crotch crunch, which again, I have found to be amazing, especially when getting this guy into some of the slightly more dynamic poses. When it comes here to the hips, these can kick outwards, although only on a mere friction joint. So right now this feels fine, but I'm not quite sure if this will stand the test of time. He's also packing a decent thigh swivel. However, in his defense, he also includes really heavy duty ratchet joints. To be fair, they may be even too tight, but those can kick out roughly to 90. There's also a really decent ratchet joint here in the knee, and then finally, when it comes here to the ankles, he has an ankle joint for days. I mean, check that out. And if you also disengage the transformation joint on the back, it allows the foot to rock forwards, which again, I have found to be amazing, especially when getting this guy into some pretty freaky poses. But as you guys all know, to see what the Emperor of Destruction is truly capable of, now let's put him through the pose test. So, soaring through some robot mode comparisons, first up we are whacking out the original Commander class, where you have Siege Jetfire. Now when it comes to scale, Magmatron is significantly smaller, but one thing you guys have to bear in mind is that Jetfire really wasn't all that complex to transform, whereas when it comes here to Magmatron, he really is along the same lines as what we have come to expect when it comes to the likes of the Studio Series 86 Ultra Magnus. I do think the Commander class scale point was the perfect scale for this guy to kind of be put in, because had they shrunk him down to a leader class, I just don't think they would have been able to properly execute this design. Although, one thing I can definitely say with ease is that there is no Commander class right now that is able to top the sheer awesomeness that we saw last year from the Armada Optimus Prime. So I am wondering as to what Hasbro's next entry will be, because if rumours are to be true that it will be a Studio Series 86 Optimus Prime, then I do wonder if that will stand a chance against his Armada counterpart. Here, for some general size comparisons, we are whacking out the original leader of the Predacons, where you have Beast Wars Megatron. So, between the two leaders, which is the one you guys personally prefer, whilst I definitely love Beast Wars Megatron, there is no denying that Magmatron looks like an absolute beast in comparison. Which, speaking of, here is how he stacks up against the Nemesis Leo, aka Leo Convoy from the Legacy Evolution lineup. Now, whilst these do make for a pretty decent pairing, I can't lie to you guys, I'm hoping Hasbro aren't blueballing us with this release, and that this time next year we can see a brand new update of Big Convoy, because that would be an epic companion piece to stack up against this guy. For another absolute GOAT, here we have the Earthrise Optimus Prime, the Transformers Studio Series 86 Ironhide, who definitely does look as if though he's just crapped his pants, and to be honest with you guys, with Magmatron standing next to him, I don't blame him in the slightest. And then finally, for an average deluxe comparison, we have the Legacy United Earth Mode Hound. So, now let's check out the transformation of this guy, and let's just say he definitely lives up to the title of Emperor of Destruction, because the transformation is crazy. So, to begin with, you are going to want to spin this sucker to the side, take a hold of the Skysaurus wing, hinge this baddie upwards. Then for the next step, we can take the Seasaurus head, detach it away from the shoulder, and then swivel this here around to the back. Then for the next step, you are going to take the claws from the Skysaurus and hinge these upwards here on both sides. That will then allow it so that you can take your finger, take this panel here, and begin to flick this forwards, which hopefully should then free up the shoulder joint. So as we spin here to this side, let's try and do the same. So flick this panel here forwards. With that now complete, we can spin around here to the side, and hopefully, if all is well, we can pretty much just remove the entirety of the Seasaurus away from the main bulk of Magmatron. Now that's complete, we should then be able to take the Skysaurus, and this also is very easy to detach. So this will just remove exactly like this. So now we are left with the Landsaurus, the Skysaurus, and the Seasaurus. Which, I won't lie to you guys in saying, definitely makes the transformation slightly more straightforward, considering that we are dealing with individual beasts rather than one mighty one. So for the first step, when it comes here to the Skysaurus, you are going to straighten out the head, pretty much take the robot mode head and slide it inside this cavity. Then what we can do is begin to straighten out the wings like this. We can then take the beast mode claws, swing these baddies here around to the front. Then for the next step, we can pretty much just angle the legs exactly like that. And would you guys believe me if I said that is the Skysaurus fully transformed? Now, when it comes to the Seasaurus, first of all, we are going to whack out the shield. Now, due to the way this guy has been designed, he does rely heavily on parts forming. So, for the first step, take this panel and hinge this here outwards. So, do the same here for this side. Then what you'll do is take this section and slide this down. And check out all of the internal detail. I thought that was awesome. You literally only see this during transformation. Then what you'll do is just angle this panel exactly like this. And to be fair, that is the shield prepped for the rest of the transformation. For the next step, here is where we can whack out the big bad upper torso, and this is where the transformation begins to get crazy. So for the first step, spin this sucker around to the side. We can then take these panels and detach them away from this section. So do the same here for this side, detach that section like that. Then what we can do is pretty much split this directly down the middle exactly like this. Then what you'll do is take the Seasaurus head and bring this neck joint here all the way out until it is positioned like that. When it comes here to the next steps, what you'll then do is take these panels, pretty much just tuck them here to the back for now, because we are solely going to begin work here on this section. So you're going to take this entire bracket piece, hinge this section here upwards, then what you'll do is collapse these shoulder joints in, and then at the very same time begin ratcheting the shoulders here outwards. So compress that, There are then some tabs here which are going to slide into these slots, so snap those there into place and do the same here for this side. So begin hinging that upwards, and then at the same time utilize that ratchet joint, compress this section here down, and then snap that piece there into place. Now is where things get kind of freaky, because what we're then going to do is rotate here on this slider joint, and we are now going to compress upwards exactly like that. Once that's complete, we can now take the wrist joint, rotate this sucker around. This tab is going to slide into this slot, so make use out of this double jointed elbow. Just compress that until it does tab into place. The only difference for the opposite side is we are first of all going to rotate around here at the bicep, and then we will rotate around at the wrist. So just compress all of this up, again making use out of those double jointed elbows. Once that's complete, we can now completely straighten that out, so that right now we should be left with something which looks exactly like that. Then for the next step, we can take this panel, bring this here up and over the top of the top arm. Then what we can do is spin here to the top of this guy. So take the tail, hinge this here outwards, and then snap these panels here into place. And to be honest with you guys, that is pretty much the upper body now fully transformed. So, all that is really left to do is to combine the two pieces. So, the main points of connection that really help you out with transformation would be these massive tabs sliding into these massive slots. So, as long as you connect those up like that, the rest of it should be kind of plain sailing. So, all you'll do now is just make sure that those tabs are lined up properly all of the way around. Then for the next step, we can take this section here, flip that upwards. You'll then want to snap the tail into place, and then for one final touch, we can take the neck joint and snap that there all the way down. Just make sure the head is rotated around in the correct way, and that is the Seasaurus fully transformed. Next up, here is where we're going to check out the transformation for the Landsaurus. So for the first step, take the blade and completely detach it here away from the hilt. Then for the next step, we can take this section and flick this here all the way upwards. Then what you'll do is take this component and then proceed to flick this here all the way back. Then for the next step, we can detach this hinge joint and pretty much extend this here outwards. Then what you'll do is take a hold of this component and swivel this bad boy here out to the side. So do the same here for this side, and then all you'll do to kind of finish this piece off is take these double joints and completely extend those there outwards. So, now let's get stuck into the meat and potatoes of the transformation when it comes to this guy. So, first of all, take these panels and slide these here down. Then for the next step, we can take this section, hinge this here all the way around to the back. And what you'll do here is rotate at this joint, so that right now it should be looking exactly like that. Then for the next step, what I like to do is pretty much detach the entire upper torso away from the skirt armor like this. Then what you'll do is you'll take these components, hinge them down, and then you'll rotate them inwards like that. So, do the same here for this side. Then we will proceed to combine them directly down the middle. To be honest, these do kind of become the guts of the Landsaurus mode, which I thought was pretty sweet. Now what we'll do is take this panel and slide this section down. We are then going to make use out of the hip skirts. So these are going to form the sides of the dino. So just snap that section there into place, come around here to this side and do the same, although for some strange reason, this side always wants to fight me. Check this out. It begins to kind of spring out of place, so I'm not sure if maybe I should hit that baddie with a ton of heat. You guys let me know down below how you think I can fix this. But then for the next step, we can take the tiny little Landsaurus claws and spin these here forwards, so let's do the same here on both sides. Now what we're going to do is drop down to this sucker's legs. So for the first few steps, you are going to take these hydraulic components and begin to slide these here into the thighs. You'll then take these components here and slide these into the back of the legs. So flip this baddie here around to the side and do the same here for this section. So completely hinge that upwards and do the same here for this side. Now what we'll do is turn this guy upside down. So first of all, you must make sure that we are taking those big brutal claws that we saw in the robot mode, and these here are going to slide into the soles of the feet. So do the same here for the second set. Make sure that these here do completely reverse to the underside exactly like that. Here is where we can now work on the heel spurs. So these are double jointed. The first set are at the very tips, so slide those baddies in, and then for the final set we can just compress these completely to the underside, so that right now everything should look like this. And to be honest with you guys, those are pretty much the big chunky legs now fully prepped for the dino mode. So, checking out some of the final steps for this guy. First of all, you are going to want to take the neck piece, swivel this section here all of the way down. Then what we'll do is compress this double hinge joint, so that right now, everything should be looking something along the lines of this. Then for the next step, we will spin this guy completely upside down, and on the underside of this part of the tail are two distinctive slots, which this section here is going to snap into. So, you'll pretty much just tuck this here to the underside, slide that section there into place. With that now complete, here is where we can make make use out of this back joint, so just make sure that's snapped into place. And now all you'll pretty much do is begin to compress all of these joints here up and over the top of the magma guts. So just make sure that everything does snap into place like that. Another thing which you'll also make sure of is that these two tabs do slide into this section. Now, I won't lie to you guys, it is a very loose connection, so will more than likely detach, but that is pretty much the position that it should be in. And with all that being said, that is pretty much the base Landsaurus now fully transformed. Although, for those of you who are into your weapon storage, there is one final step. So what you'll do is take the blade and pretty much slide it here onto the underside of the Landsaurus. Now, first up, stomping his way onto the battlefield is the Landsaurus, who I believe officially is a Giganotosaurus. You know, that big mother from the latest Jurassic World movie. I do believe at one point this was the largest land-based dinosaur ever to rule the Earth, and when it comes to detail, this would definitely give Magmatron a run for its money. It's also packing some pretty decent articulation too. So when it comes here to the tail, this sucker can be swiveled left to right, so I should imagine he will have no issues in smacking his opponents through the battlefield. When it comes here to the legs, these also are pretty decently articulated, although the second you hinge these here outwards, damn, you do then begin to reveal the inner guts of this guy, which, to be fair, I actually thought was kind of a sweet detail, because this again is kind of a throwback to how the original Magmatron figure looked. The tiny little arms are also ball jointed, and then finally when it comes here to the head, in addition to looking left to right, this can also look up and down, although once you reach a certain point, it kind of looks as if though maybe he's had his throat slashed, because damn, that is one nasty cut. And unfortunately when it comes to the jaw articulation, despite this guy at one point being by far one of the most ferocious land-based dinos, the jaw only opens this wide, which I do think kind of sucks, especially as on the inside, the jaw has been fully decked out. But overall, by far one of the strongest dinos out of the bunch, although honestly guys, I can't say he's my favourite, because swimming his way through a pool of energon from the victims which he has destroyed, we have the Seasaurus. Now this is definitely the best out of the bunch in my eyes, and I think it's mainly due to the articulation. You know, the neck is stacked when it comes to hinge joints, and the body has been filled in front side to back. The same though unfortunately cannot be said as we check out the neck joint. So sadly from the front, this is super damn hollow, and usually I wouldn't complain too much about hollow joints, and I guess you could technically say that this is a throwback to the original Magmatron toy, but this figure right here retails for £90. It's one of the most expensive mainline Transformers Hasbro produce, so to see how ugly this hollowness looks from the front, I seriously think sucks. Although, there is an easy fix for this. The second you spin this bad boy around to the back, bang! There is a work around it, but that neck is so cool. I mean, check out how many individual joints they've packed into that, which I thought was seriously awesome. Overall, an amazing looking dino mode, and this has made me want more than anything a full-blown Dinobot paddles, because by the articulation this guy's packing, we know Hasbro can definitely cook up something quite special. And finally, soaring through the battlefield is Pterosaur's brother from another mother. We have the Skysaurus, and I am in love with the paint details that we have here for the wings. That is seriously looking awesome. And to be fair, the head sculpt too is definitely packing a punch. I like how every single one of the teeth have been fully decked out in this silver. When it comes here to the wingspan, this here is mighty. So again, I also believe at one point this too was the largest air-based dino ever to exist. So that's pretty impressive. And much like some of the previous dinos, this guy's also packing that inbuilt Predacon globe, which I thought was a really neat touch. And my only real issue with this guy, again like the Seasaurus, would be the hollow neck. There really is no reason for this at all, and from certain angles for a commander class, I do think this comes across as being a little cheap. But that ain't all these dinos are packing, because Hasbro have once again integrated the third and final combined form into these guys. So first of all, we are whacking out the Seasaurus, because this guy does a lot of the heavy lifting for this form. So to begin with, we are going to take the neck joint and hinge this sucker all the way upwards like that. Then what we'll do is spin around here to the back, take the tail, and once again detach this. Now much like if we were going back into robot mode, for the next step you are then going to want to split these two components directly down the middle, so that we are now left with the torso of the robot mode and the shield. Now, between the two components, we are first of all going to want to begin work here on the shield. So, you are going to take this section and swivel that outwards. Then what you'll do is flip here to the underside, take this section and snap that there into place. And then really and truly, for some finishing touches, we are going to line that tab up with this slot. So, make sure that snaps into place. And then for one final touch, we are going to snap that component into place. And that is pretty much this entire section now fully prepped. Now let's get stuck into the meat and potatoes of this transformation. So first of all, we're going to take these components and swing these here all the way around to the back. Then what you'll do is spin around here to the back side, take a hold of these sections and begin angling these here outwards, which then begins to reveal some really nice internal detail. I thought that was seriously really sweet. Then what we're going to do is pretty much break the spine of this guy right down the middle. Now for the next stage, we are going to take this entire section, begin hinging this upwards, rotating this around, and here is again where you are going to make use out of that slider joint, because now we are going to shoot this section here upwards so that in terms of design, everything should be pretty much symmetrical. Then for the next step, what we're going to do is take the shoulder joints, begin hinging these here outwards, so do the same here for this side. Now when it comes here to the piece which does have the golden armor, it is slightly different in comparison to the transformation of the opposite side. So we're going to disconnect the wrist joint away from the shoulder, slide this section here all of the way down. We're now going to rotate around here at the bicep, which is a step you don't need to do for the opposite side. Then what we're going to do is take the hand, hinge it here outwards. We can then begin utilizing those pin joints for the fingers to completely extend those open, and then for a final touch, we are then going to want to rotate around here at the wrist joint. So let's for the most part do the same here for this side. So detach that hand away from that shoulder pad, completely extend that elbow joint there downwards. Now what you'll do is open up the palm utilizing those pin joints, make sure that the hand is shifted down so that it looks like this. Then we're going to rotate around here at the wrist joint so that it should look something along the lines of this. Now for the next stage of the transformation, we are going to take these panels, fling these here outwards, and then we're going to take these sections and flip these here forwards. Now, one thing I thought was kind of cool is that this section is going to slide into this hollow gap. So you are going to want to make sure that you give this a super secure push, because these are integral for the transformation of the Magmasaurus. So do the same here for this side, spin that sucker around, make sure that gunmetal component is completely flung around so that it can now combine into this hollow cavity exactly like that. And then for a finishing touch, we're going to take this latch and completely extend it, and right now this is how this piece should look. So trust me guys, this is now completely ready to be combined with the Landsaurus. So the time has now come to combine these two dinos. So for the first step, you are going to want to take this slot here and slide it into this big massive tab. So what I like to do is kind of place it in at a slight angle, and then hopefully that should help to secure the connection. Then what you'll make sure of is that this section here does slide into place, and then to completely secure the Landsaurus to the Seasaurus, these pieces here are going to slide into those circular ports. So spin this sucker around here to the underside and make sure of the same here for this side, and that is pretty much these two components fully combined. And then finally, to kind of round things off for these two, you are now going to whack out the shield, and this is super straightforward because it does simply just slide over the top. So make sure that you give that a good squeeze and everything should snap into place. To kind of finish the look, you'll then take the neck joint, make sure that that too does snap into place, and then for one final touch, in order to prep this guy for the Skysaurus, we are now going to take the back plate and completely hinge this component upwards, so that again, swooping into the battlefield will be the Skysaurus. Now this transformation is really so easy. All you'll have to do is take the wings, reverse these here around until the front is now facing the back, and that is pretty much it, completely prepped. And then all that goes on here is that we're going to take the Skysaurus, snap it into the back of the Landsaurus, and then the neck is going to clamp into this section. So make sure that is locked into place. Then what we can do is take this panel, snap that back over, and then all that is really left to do would be to close up these legs. So that right now, everything should be looking something along the lines of this. Now, once fully combined, we have Magmasaurus, who is very quickly making his way up the food chain, because there is no denying that this thing is an absolute beast. And as crazy as this looks, because I won't lie, 3 dinosaurs kind of mashing into one is nuts, I actually really like the way this looks. And this was a form that Magmatron would transform into in the original Beast Wars Neo show, so I can totally see as to why it earned its original name of the Orgy mode. I will say, however, that this is the only mode this guy has, which I think the original figure did a slightly better job of, because the second you do spin this sucker to the side, unfortunately it is quite gappy, so I can totally understand as to why most collectors won't be displaying Magmatron in this mode. Although I do think, just for the sheer craziness of how this looks, this will probably be how I have Magmatron in my collection, and there is no denying that we 100% need a brand new big convoy to go against this absolute beast, because I think they would make for an epic pairing. And so, wrapping up on this review for the Transformers Legacy United Commander Class Magmatron. I seriously think this character is an absolute wild card. This is such a wacky design, one which I don't think I ever would have experienced had it not been for this release, and when it comes to robot mode, they have done a superb job. Much like some of the past Commander classes, he has been built so incredibly well. He's also a decent size, you do have to bear in mind that he is packing a lot of engineering, more so than most Commanders, so that is definitely pretty impressive. In terms of the 3 distinct beast modes, I think all of them are great. The only issue that I really take with them all would be the hollow joints, especially when it comes to that Seasaurus. For a figure which does retail for roughly £90, I don't really think that's acceptable, so in future, I'm hoping that Hasbro do decide to fill their Commanders in front side to back. In terms of a recommendation, if you are a fan of big, well-engineered Commander class figures, such as Ultra Magnus, I really do think this guy is in a very similar vein to him. He is so well-engineered and really well-built, so this is definitely a character who I do think is worthy of that Commander class price point and title. So I would love to get your guys' thoughts down below. What do you guys think of the leader of the Predacons? And until my next review, transform and roll out!